We're going to hear from all 8 candidates today for their role in the Quinta City government, including 3 for mayor and 5 for city council. And before we meet them and hear their answers on the topics, we'd like you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. We have one guest here who is not running for office this week, but we want to acknowledge her, Kathleen Fitzpatrick of the City Council. I'd also like to acknowledge John Miller's team, who is filming it. The film of this event will be posted on our website, probably starting tomorrow. And John Miller's team is also providing the water. So please help yourself. Let me first go over the rules for today's event. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for an opening statement. Questions will be presented by 2 moderators from the Communications Committee, myself and Lisa Corbin. Questions have been solicited in advance from Trilogy residents, and we appreciate all of you who send in questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. And our timekeeper, Mia Cecina, here in front, will keep time. The moderators may pose questions to just the candidates for mayor, or just the candidates for city council, or to all 8 candidates. The order of candidates will be rotated, and each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for a closing statement. Now, before we begin, those of you who brought cell phones, would you please turn them on? And if you need to step out of the ballroom for any reason, we ask that you use the back door there to the captain. Thank you. Because we solicited questions in advance from residents here at Trilogy, and because we have 8 candidates and a lot of topics to cover, we will not be taking any questions from the floor. And in the interest of time, we ask that you hold any applause until the end of the event. Happy hour, Cafe Solaz, follows this event. And if you have any questions that we may have overlooked, that's the time to buttonhole the candidates. So, more information on all the candidates may be found in the library outside in the hall. Now, because we ask you to hold your applause during this event, let's use our hands right now to give these men and women a good Trilogy welcome. Okay, let's begin with that. And we're going to proceed in alphabetical order by their last name. So first up is Linda Hayes.
Testing, there we go. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Linda Evans. I'm currently your mayor for the City of La Quinta. A show of hands, how many people have I not seen in the candidates forum because we haven't had one in the last few years? We've got a lot of new residents of Trilogy. Let me see all of our new ones because I see a lot of familiar faces. It's so great to be back here. Thank you very much and welcome, and appreciate you being here to learn about the candidates and making that informed decision to help lead our city. I've had the honor of being mayor since 2014. I was on council in 2009, ran for city council for 4 years, 2010 to 14, and then was elected mayor. We still elect mayor in the City of La Quinta for an every 2-year term. And I had the honor of really getting to know the Trilogy residents, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But from the standpoint of my first encounter here was making sure that you all had a fence turned into a wall and into Lucia. And then the next one was, let's make sure we've got an extra lane on both sides of 60. And then the next campaign was, can we make sure we get some landscaping done? So you all have been very strong advocates, and our city council has delivered over the years. We thank you for the donation of the Citizens on Patrol vehicle that you've done for your donation for our law enforcement. Appreciate all the volunteers that do volunteer work in our city. Find Food Bank, I know there's a number of you, as well as Rotary, as well as Citizens on Patrol. So this is an engaged community. I love your preparedness fairs, all those things. It's just something that feels like home here. A little bit of background for those who don't know me. I was born and raised in Southern California. I've been married for 27 years, no kids, and been out in the desert for about 19 and a half years. I graduated from Cal State Fullerton with a bachelor's in communications degree in public relations, and I have 2 masters, one in healthcare administration and one in master's of science in gerontology, just in case I needed that. My professional career is still very much healthcare administration. I've worked with Tenet Healthcare for 27 years in multiple hospitals, and that's what brought me out to the desert 19 and a half years ago, is get transferred to JFK Memorial. I now work for the Desert Care Network, which is Desert Regional Medical Center, High Desert in Joshua Tree, and JFK in Indio. And I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Community Advocacy, so a lot of my community outreach involves a lot of what I do as mayor too, because it's a ton about community outreach, working with nonprofit organizations, making the community better. Several boards that I sit on, because council is not just 2 meetings a month. I'm on the Conservation Commission, the Energy Environmental Resources Commission, I'm on the Palm Springs Air Museum Board, serve as a La Quinta Rotarian, let's see, Greater Palm Springs, Visit Greater Palm Springs Convention Visitors Bureau, Coachella Valley Volunteers in Medicine, and I'm probably losing a few there, but just know that I'm community engaged. I serve with a great group of people. We're very much a team, and this council has really shown what fiscal conservancy can be, what engaging in the community can be, and the response that we did for COVID, giving $2 million of our reserve funds to our local businesses to keep jobs, keep rent paid, keep lights on while we were in a shutdown, as well as $100,000 supplying Food Bank to make sure our affordable housing complexes get the food that they need.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Really, in the interest of time, please hold your applause. We have a lot to get to. Thank you. Okay, next up is Richard Gray.
How about now? Okay, I've got to swallow it. My name is Richard Gray. I'm running for the council, and I'm very interested in seeing a new team come in so that we continue with what democracy really is, and that is people from the people that are being governed, from the citizens, coming up and spending a certain period of time as overseers and goal setters and the people responsible to the electorate, and then leaving and going to their own job again. We should have rotation. There should be more participation from the rest of the people that are in the citizenry. And why is that? Well, I will say U.S. Foreign Service officer, diplomat with the Department of State, and served in several different countries. And it was a very common thing that you would arrive in a new city and you'd have a short period of time to get acclimated, and before you know it, you were getting ready to move on to the next post. This is something that they do on purpose in order to have a variety of experiences and to make sure that you get a variety of eyes looking at you. Don't get somebody that becomes imbued and inured in the job. I'm very interested in seeing the city move forward to do better what they have done well so far. Silver Rock is something that should much more be done better than it has been done so far. I'm disappointed that we did not get a chance to vote on the CV link. It's almost completed now, but several other cities that did get the chance to vote on that decided they did not want CV link. The point I'm making with that is neither for nor against CV link. It's a done fact. But that we should, as a citizenship, have an opportunity to vote on things that are of very long-lasting and deep impact. The CV link will be with us for a very long time, and it's very hard to know how well it's going to be policed if we have enough money to pay for all the additional expenses that we're going to be having with it. Now, besides that, there are a number of other issues coming up. For example, where I live on Adams, they have what is called road diet. So a 4-lane highway got cut down to 2 lanes. Evidently, there's a proposal to do that same thing with Avenue 48, especially because it's connecting La Quinta Indio, and Coachella. And the idea is that they want to cut it down, paint a very large area on either side, and that's for four or so times a year, when perhaps we could do more thinking and have the Golden Boys actually pay for temporary cones each time that we need to use extra bicycle. That's just an example. So my last point to you is I have a few seconds. Vote for the new team. Vote for Robert Silk. Vote for me. Vote for Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Brian Hanrahan.
It's on. My name is Brian Hanrahan. It's nice of you people to have us here. This is great. Always a great event. I ran for city council about 40 years ago, 38 years ago with John, when I wanted more hotels on 111. I think it's really important for us now to look for the next 40 years. What do we want for La Quinta? I'd like to have a collection of different hotels at Silver Rock. Some more affordable, a little more diverse. I'm really concerned about how Silver Rock develops for the citizens of La Quinta. I know that right now we're very divided over the short-term rental agency. And we're seeing the division. I'm not even sure if we should have had the agency. It's become a cash cow to the city now. Are we stuck with it? Should we keep it? Is it answering all of our questions? I mean, this is part of it. As we go forward, I don't want anyone telling me what I should do with my home. And it's a slippery slope, and it's dangerous. And I've been saying for years that this is a disturbing the peace issue. Whether you're a short-term rental or long-term rental, at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday, who do you want to come out and tell the neighbors to be quiet? You want law enforcement. I've always advocated for our own law enforcement. They say it's too expensive. I still would like, as a councilman, I would check into that, our own police force. I also supported Coral Mountain. I wanted them to mitigate and do things to make the neighbors happy, but I do not want to see us become NIMBY. Not in my backyard. I think it's bad for business, and it's dangerous, and it's not fair. We build a skate park, and then we're not going to build a surf park. These are issues I'm concerned with. Roundabouts. There are 30,000 roundabouts in France, 10,000 in England. Carmel, Indiana has 100. The accidents are much less dangerous. I think it's the future. I'd like to see a roundabout at Washington on 111. Keep the traffic moving, slow it down. Yeah, if you think about it though, we've already had fires. I'm kind of, my wife says I'm a futurist. I'm looking forward the next 40 years for La Quinta. You know, we may have to build over the wash to put housing next to the high school. We've got to start looking at new things. Housing is a serious issue in California. I've got an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, and they're in college, and they're concerned. They look at me and they go, you've got yours. What's going to happen to us? And we better start thinking about this a little bit. The young people behind us are shaking their heads going, well, you guys got it all. I'm sorry, 23 seconds. I've got a whole list of things here, but that's about it. I explained everything. I said, no on Measure A. I don't think we've solved anything here. And I think that we should think about possibly getting rid of the entire short-term rental agency and rethinking this whole thing. Thank you very much.
I'd like to remind the audience, please hold your comments when the candidates speak. Thank you. Okay, next up is Joe Johnson.
Hi everybody, I'm Joe Johnson and running again for City Council. Many of you have seen my posts on Facebook and Nextdoor. Just to go over some of it, I've been against the Wade Park from way before I even thought about running. Even donated for the cause. There's no compromising with that. I have been a proponent of Measure A. If I was writing it, I would have made it not quite as strict, but I didn't write it. It had nothing to do with the input of it. So as it is, I'm still in favor of it because I don't want the city to feel they have a mandate of getting rid of the restrictions that they put in. Not saying they would, but you never know. So I'm in favor of that. As far as my qualifications, I was an investigator with consumer affairs for a long time. I ran consumer protection unit, real estate fraud unit, mediation unit, and even the identity theft issue. Mediation, though, is something that doesn't feel is that what we need on some of these issues. We have a split with our public here on some of these issues like Measure A, where it's really made a schism between neighbors, and we need to bring people back together again for the good of the entire city. I not only am a mediator, I actually designed the LA County mediation program training course. I know what the subject, and I'm good at it. And I think that me being around can only be helpful in bringing everybody together. So we're one city, we're all neighbors, we're going to live with each other for a long time, and that's the way we want to keep it, be friendly and iron out these little differences before they can become big, big problems. So other things will come up, I'm sure, from the questions, but I'm always online. If you ever want to ask me a question, I don't duck, I answer everything directly, and I appreciate your input in any subject whatsoever. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Deborah McGarry.
Hello, everybody. My name is Deborah McGarry, and I want to thank you so much for having us here today. This is a beautiful community, and I'm very happy to be here and humbled to be in front of you. I have not run for city council before, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, right? About what I do, my career, my background. I am new to this part of it, but I'm not new to city government or understanding how it works. My profession is public affairs manager. I am a public affairs manager for Southern California Gas Company. That's not an endorsement, it's just the company I work for. And I did take today off to do this. So, in case anybody asks. But my job in external affairs is working with all of the different cities throughout the Coachella Valley, Imperial County, and part of San Bernardino County. So I manage 19 cities in the county of Imperial County. I work with each of the elected officials and also their leadership, dealing with issues that have to do with either SoCal Gas or other things that we would have to deal with. So I'm very much engaged with them. But that's not the only experience I've had. I've also, from my previous career, I worked 15 years in the waste industry. I also worked very closely with the cities in the Coachella Valley, understanding the issues that they face. I'm very active with regards to the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. That's the agency that actually works with regards to the putting in the bridges, CV Link, all the regional issues that we have, public safety, housing. We as an organization, as a city, have to work with all these regional cities, all these other cities in the valley to actually try to move some of these issues forward, because it's just too expensive for just the City of La Quinta on its own to move forward to try to figure out how to go ahead and build a bridge, just so you know. And then the other part of it is that I've also been very involved, and I'm the lead for my company with California League of Cities. There was a gentleman here today that I met who actually has worked with the city of Menifee and actually is a former city council member. And I asked him about League of Cities. Interestingly enough, League of Cities is the agency that covers all 442 cities throughout the state of California. They work on policies. They talk about the different issues that are affecting the cities. I'm very much involved in that. But I think also some of the other things I do here locally is that I've worked with local government, public safety, and customer resolution. That's part of my job. I hold leadership roles within organizations like Find Food Bank, which is food insecurity, Friends of the Desert Mountains, which is land conservation. I'm the chairperson of CVEP, the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership, and I'm also very much involved in housing with part of the Desert Valley Builders Association, past chair there. My years of experience in the community has qualified me for being on a seat for city council. And I believe that this will help them to provide a different perspective. And I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Okay, next up is John Pena.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is John Pena, and I am running for city council. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself. Like Linda, I went to Cal State Fullerton. I was born and raised here in the Coachella Valley. Local residents, I went to Indio High School, College of the Desert, where I was inducted to the Hall of Fame, went on to Cal State Fullerton, then got my law degree at Western State University. Came back to this community to serve my community. My parents were local business owners in this area. They came to the country to have a better life for themselves and their children, and they succeeded. I understand the plight of local business people, men and women, and small businesses. My wife and I also have small businesses along with my daughter, and we understand the effects that government can have on those businesses and the plight that they go through and how they need to struggle. Also, I served you as your former mayor in the City of La Quinta early on. I was on the city council and approved Trilogy when I was mayor, when it came before us, so you're welcome. You have we have developed and approved some very beautiful projects out here. And I'm going to be glad to talk about Silver Rock and STVRs and Coral Mountain. And as the mayor mentioned too, we've always delivered for Trilogy. Whether it was a wall across the street, whether it was a bike lane, whether it was improved paving out here, we've always come to the aid of the community out here, and we will continue to do so. I'm proud to serve with the people that we serve with on the city council. We're financially solid as a city, but it's not always going to be that way. We have to be very, very careful about how we spend and raise our money. And we've been very, very wise stewards of that tax dollar that you give us. We will continue to do so. We will also continue to listen to our residents, continue to listen to our citizens when concerns come up. We're one of the finest cities in the Coachella Valley, although we're the youngest, and we will continue to do that and be that way. We always listen to our residents' concerns. We address those issues in a fair and even and balanced manner, and we will continue to do that. The issues that come before us are not easy. They are very, very complex, something you can't just answer in 1 minute. They take a lot of deep thought, and we have a very talented staff that helps us along that process. We are the policymakers, and we direct the staff to implement that policy. So I'm very proud of what we've done in the City of La Quinta, and I hope you are too. And I ask you to continue to elect this city council, myself, and the mayor as you go forward, because we've done a great job. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Robert Silk.
Hello everyone, I'm Robert Silk, and I know Trilogy very well because our organization, along with me years ago, are the ones that led the effort to get rid of the California biomass plant very close to your eastern border. It took us a year and a half, but we did move it, and we're very proud of that. And I do want to say that I don't know if most of you know about past, which is best thing anyways, but I've had 3 presidential appointments. President Bush, I was part of the trade mission to Moscow back in 1990. President Obama appointed me to be the representative director of the Selective Service System for Riverside County and Southern California Board because of my 6 years in Vietnam. And 8 years are left of that 20-year term. And Donald Trump, because we both went to Wharton School together way back then, wanted me to be his campaign champion for the Coachella Valley in 2016. I had a rap sheet that's this long, and some of the things about me are in the ante room over here that I brought some material. But I really would like to talk about you, about what you went through with the Coral Mountain. I'm very proud of people that represented you, Derek Wong and Carolyn Winter and Elena, and Richard Gray and I walked the Coral Mountain area very much. I know that it's hard to appeal to developers and what they want to do something, but this was the wrong addition, I believe, because of the noise factor and the lights and so forth. And I'm glad that the city council, in my opinion, came to their senses at the end and voted that part down. I don't know what this developer might come up with as another attraction. It could be Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus with camels and elephants out there, or maybe the largest Ferris wheel in the world, but I don't think he's finished. And of course that has to be revisited. But I'm very proud of the way people had represented you. It was a little bit much that the planning commission kept some of you there until 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I think they probably should have, if they had the opportunity to do it again, to have your people cut down from 3 minutes to maybe a minute and a half, and then have the developers answering the questions rather than he's on for the first 2 to 3 hours. So I think that everybody learned a lot from that. So I'm glad to be here. It's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Alan Woodruff.
Good afternoon. A little bit of volume. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. My name is Alan Woodruff. I am a 26-year resident of the La Quinta Cove and a 33-year resident of the Coachella Valley. The thing that might be interesting to some of you is I'm an 11-time Ironman finisher. I'm a 71 marathons under my belt. I've ran Boston twice, qualified 25 times. I will tell you very simply why I'm running for mayor. I woke up one morning and I was scared that if I did not do something to run for mayor, that I would not recognize the city that I lived in. I worked in the financial services industry for 20 years. I know what money does, okay? My responsibility was to Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, Hayes Rudder, Dean Witter, H. Beck. I was the guy that they came to when they had a marketing situation so they could make more money, okay? I stand on a principle of running for mayor with term limits. I will introduce term limits. We have up here what I call career politicians. The Panama Canal was built in 10 years, okay? Some of these people have been up here since your kid was in first grade. They've now graduated from high school. That's way too long. You need a fresh look on the city council to get fresh ideas. That simple, okay? Coral Mountain will be back in your backyard. I guarantee you this, okay? They've already started to annex Vista Santa Rosa. They've started the process. It's in the works. And this is not a fear factor for you to be scared about something. This is reality, okay? I'm the person that you want on your side to stop the developers. I became involved because I felt that our city of La Quinta was being sold out to developers. Plain and simple. I don't have an agenda. I know the streets in the Cove are terrible. Our problems there are different than yours here, okay? So I have to be able to address those problems there. We have nightly crime. The mailboxes are pilfered every night, okay? Our streets have 6-inch gashes in them. And they're telling you about Silver Rock. Silver Rock is not complete. It is not even close. I drove in there the other day to look at it so that I could be informed to tell you it's an abomination. There are buildings there with not even connected walls, and they're using wood studs. It's a 3-day job. Over 12 years. Think about that fact. Your kids are in first grade, your grandkids, and now they're graduated from high school. That's a long time to put a project. In real business, you don't get a bite at the apple every time. You get it once, and if you fail, you're replaced. November 8th, vote for a guy that'll stand up for you, Alan Woodruff.
Okay, how about a round of applause now for Alexander? Now for the fun part, questions and answers. And asking the first question will be my Howard Carey, please.
Thanks, John. And welcome, candidates. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Trilogy. First question today we're going to deal with is short-term rentals. It's going to go to all 8 candidates, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to reply. The first candidate will be Deborah McGarry.
Are you just want me to answer questions?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. So, and the question is, Measure A would phase out, then ban, non-hosted short-term rentals in the city. My question has 2 parts.
First, tell us how you intend to vote on the measure and why. And second, if Measure A is approved, it is estimated that the city will lose between 6 and 8 million in annual revenue. If you're elected, what are your ideas for addressing that shortfall?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure I can see the clock. So in regards to short-term rentals, one person had asked me this question earlier today, and first of all, it does go to the voters. The voters will make that decision. That's perfectly fine. It's a democracy. This is the way it needs to happen. In regards to short-term rentals, I have not been impacted by them. I am very empathetic to those people that have been impacted by it. However, after sharing what I do in regards to my business, I'm working for a company that understands the various parts of the different cities and how they make revenue. $6 million is a lot of money for the city to possibly lose. I mean, that is going to be somewhat of an impact to the city. And you could go up and actually, from other types of studies, be able to see how this is going to impact the city. This will impact possibly parks, any type of capital projects, and things that are being done. So you need to take that into consideration. In regards to the measure itself, I will be voting no on this. I have said that, I will continue to support that. But keep in mind, in regards to voting no on Measure A, I also feel that what we need to do is limit and not continue to add more of the short-term rentals. I would continue with the ban on the short-term rentals and not move them forward. I shared a story that really kind of touched my heart. I was watching the city of Palm Springs. By the way, I've watched all the La Quinta conversations in the committee that was put together for the city to listen in on it. But I also, because this is spilling over into some of the other communities, a resident from Palm Springs who shared her comments. She said she doesn't like the idea of having all the residents near her where she lives have short-term rentals. I don't think that's a good policy either. I think that actually we need to actually look at it a little bit closer, make sure that we're addressing that you don't have the big corporations coming in and buying the houses, make sure, and the city has put in together a lot of policies to actually reduce the amount of short-term rental complaints by 80%. So this is a study that was just brought forward by code enforcement. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Thank you.
Next candidate is Joe Johnson.
I'm voting for Measure A. I don't see how we can allow full-time, 365-day a year motels in residential neighborhoods. That's how I feel. I was in favor, though, of the posted STVRs because there's not many complaints from people when the owner is in the house. They're the policemen. They're up front. I believe in this measure and fully support it, but if it fails, then that's where I believe I come in because as a mediator, I think I can work something out to make everybody happy. There's could be some room for renting it out during the festivals and tennis, but not all the time. You don't need partying all the time. I mean, just the other day in front of my house, I had 6 cars because the 6 people that were staying in there all came in separate cars, blocking the driveways and hanging over, and being out at night. And the sound carries because they were just talking, they weren't yelling, nothing to call the police about, but you can hear it, my dogs hear it, and then they get off. So this thing of happening all the time, I don't believe in it. As far as shortfall, you got 2 years before this thing comes into effect. There's plenty of time. We're seeing that our sales tax keeps going up and up and up, not basically because of inflation, but it does. And that's going to take up part of it. And we have other projects coming off the line. One day maybe the Silver Rock will actually get built, who knows. But there are other things like Signature that come along that will make up for the shortfall. So I don't think we're going to have a problem. Nothing that we can't fix by just being a little bit more judicious with our spending. But we're going to get through this. Thank you. And that's how I go. Thank you.
Next candidate is John Pena.
Thank you. Measure A. Okay, it's on there. Measure A. I'm opposed to Measure A, and several reasons why. First of all, I think although it was well-intentioned, it was drafted poorly, and I think that even Joe and Ricardo have said that it's drafted poorly. Why would you vote for something that's drafted poorly? The city addressed this issue on a number of different areas. We put together a citizens advisory committee to come up both pro and con, to come up with rules that we could use to limit what was happening. The reason that we got involved with short-term rentals and the problems that we've had was because of the pandemic. The pandemic was really kind of an anomaly, and it created a bunch of problems that we didn't anticipate. We addressed them, and I think that we're doing very well as a result of it. Over 95% of the homes, about 95% of the homes in La Quinta are still single family. They're not short-term rentals. Joe is right. There's people that rent during festival season, and that's about the only time they rent. Just to make that kind of money to help pay for taxes and everything else as everything else goes up. So the rules that we have in place have really limited the complaints. We're down about 80% complaints. The people that are causing the complaints were the people that were unpermitted and were illegal. Those short-term rental people, permit holders, have been dealt with and fined. It does bring in revenue to the city, but it's not all about revenue. It's all also about citizen concerns that we have, and we've addressed those. Quite frankly, the city's done a great job in addressing those concerns. You'll hear people say, no, we can't call code enforcement all the time. It doesn't work, but it has worked. And I think the people who will say that is because they are not getting what they want. We put together, I think, a very good program. We have a moratorium in place now. We haven't issued one permit since 2020 of last year.
Next candidate is Richard Gray.
I hope that it's okay, clear. I'm voting yes on Measure A, and I wanted to take us through a short trip of logic. To begin with, when you buy a piece of property in a residential zoned area, you're buying conditions, covenants, and regulations. It's part of your bundle of ownership. And so when you buy a R1 or an R2 property, you're confident that the people that are next to you with the same restrictions and regulations and opportunities are going to be basically the same kind of usage. You're not wanting to be next door to somebody who has a garage sale every weekend. Oh, why can't we have garage sales if we can have STVRs? That's a good question. The next thing is, when you think about it, this is confiscation without compensation. And it's also arbitrarily done, because we don't have every single house on a block that has an STVR. The permit fee is very high, so that throws you into people that have a lot of money and want to invest in this. And that's what you're winding up doing, is you're following the money. And if you follow the money, you'll see that something that is your home, that should be part of a residential neighborhood. You should be able to know your neighbors, even if it's only to say hello. You know your neighbors. And yet with this, no. And as a result, this is something that we can have STVR kind of properties along the Highway 111 corridor in commercial and tourism zones, which is permitted under this resolution. The other thing for us all to remember is this is not law. If it's passed, it's not law as far as I know. So it's not impossible that the city council at some point down the road would say, hey, you know, we have to get back to that because we need so much money. And they don't need as much money. They asked for it with Proposition G, got an increase in sales tax. Now they have STVRs. What's next?
Next candidate is Alan Woodruff.
I'm voting yes on A, and it's a very simple thing for me. As I mentioned to you earlier, I am a first-time politician, so for me to be informed about A, I had to go out into the community and knock on doors, and that's what I did. I knocked on about 225 doors. It was an experience. I'll always remember, honestly, 90% great people ready to talk about things. The reason that I am yes on A is because the community does not want it in their neighborhoods. They're there now. The aforementioned, as far as neighbors or strangers coming into your neighborhood every weekend, pounding. I have had people in my driveway in tears because they could not get into their own driveway because the people that were occupying the short-term vacation rental next door were partying and were aggressive. These are the things that bothered me when I told you I had to do something because nobody else was going to do it. Yes on A is not about community. It's about guarding your piggy bank. Okay? If you have a short-term vacation rental, life is wonderful. You're making $18,000 a month, but your neighborhood is suffering. It's a motel. And people that say to me, okay, well, what about my property rights as far as what I own? I understand that, but I'll ask you a simple question. Do you want a massage parlor dispensary next door to you because you have that right as a property owner? I don't think too many people do. This is why I'm voting yes on A, so that we can keep the community a community, not a hotel haven for short-term vacation rentals. I'll note you this. There are over 1,000 permits on dock, okay? 67% of those are owned by people that do not live in this valley. 7 out of 10 homes are owned by somebody else. Remember that.
Next candidate is Robert Silk.
Well, I happen to like STDRs until one moves next door to you. Then they don't like it. And I think that that's probably the main problem because 10% of the bad guys make it worse for the other 90%. But if it ever happens to you, you'd be against it. So on this particular measure, I am in favor of Measure A. And here's a couple of reasons. First of all, it doesn't take effect until January 2024. I believe for 25. And that it's only for the R1 and R2 residential areas. There are other tourist commercial areas, and the resiliency of the people on our council, whoever they may be, will be able to make up for the shortfall in a lot of different ways. And 2 years, 2.5 years before this goes into effect. So as of now, I am in favor of Measure A passing, and also at the same time increasing the code compliance, because when someone calls, we don't have enough staff to go out more than maybe 15 or 20% and take care of the problems and knock on the doors and stay with the people inside. You know, this is a very quiet neighborhood until you moved in, and talk to them. And the fines have to be collected. In fact, the first offense maybe is 0, the second is 3,000, the third one is 5,000. But the owners of the property that rent them out should collect security deposits from their renters in advance, because it would be very hard to collect after the city charges you something. So as of now, I'm in favor of Measure A for those reasons. Thank you.
Brian Hanrahan.
Hello? There. This is a little contentious issue. My wife and I live up in the Cove. We have neighbors. Before the agency started, the short-term rental agency, we rented our house out twice, got new floors, made my wife really happy. We told the people coming in, we have people working on both sides of us. My wife prepped them really well. Our neighbors didn't even know we had people in our house. This can be done properly. Behind us is one of those short-term rentals where the kids come in and they're in the pool making all kinds of noise, but it's over in the evening. I live next to a short-term rental, and you know, they're having a good time, they're coming in. If you look at hotel prices and where things are going, you have to understand this. If you have a family, 3 or 4 kids, going to a hotel could bust the bank. I think as a future city council person, we'll have to work on this. I know that absentee landlords are a big problem. I think that's where the problem is. But again, whether it's a short-term rental or a long-term rental, when there's noisy on a Saturday night, who takes care of that? Who's going to be there? Are there enough code enforcement? Does the code enforcement have enough power to make a party go away, to get rid of the cars in the street? These are law enforcement issues, as I see it, and that's where we should go. If the sheriffs are on board, great. In the meantime, we've got to work this out. The economy is going to deal with some bad cards here, so we're looking for money everywhere. We want to keep us alive, and we want to keep our neighborhoods happy. But we got to work this out. I don't see it going away. I really don't. I think we need to settle down and come up with some good ideas, and that's what I'll work on in the future. Thank you.
Linda Evans?
I took a few notes, so I want to make sure I cover all the bases based on the discussion here. First of all, I've already voted, and I voted no on Measure A. And just to clarify, a no vote means the program stays status quo. We haven't issued a permit since August of 2020, and we have extensive fines, increased permit costs, increased inspection fees, business licenses, and the like. And the reality is as we went through contentious discussions over getting these regulations in place, the people that own and or have invested in rentals have made really all of the compromise, and the people that just flat out run them gone haven't. So a yes on A means a complete ban, except for those, quote, they say hosted. Hosted is defined as somebody nearby, somebody in an RV in the parking lot, in the driveway, in front of the house, a neighbor. So if we go to a ban, a complete ban, you're going to find a lot of, quote, hosted permits that are now going to be able to be issued. Right now we're issuing none. If Measure A does pass, many will go away, but then there'll be a lot more hosted that people will then stay close by to be able to still watch that house. The challenge is if you have a lot of unpermitted homes out there still renting, the problems don't go away. And that's where this compromise needs to come in. This program started in 2012 under Mayor Adolph. He signed the resolution to put the ordinance in place based on the recommendation of Kay Wolf, our first lady of the first mayor of La Quinta, who lived in a cove, and she coincidentally was the first bed and breakfast in the city. And her and a bunch of neighbors got together and said, you guys come to City Hall, you guys should put a program in place so we can manage this better. And that's exactly what we've done. We've managed better. So what happens to the $6 or $8 million? Gentleman in the back asked me, why isn't Highway 111 paved yet? It's an $8 million project. It's on the list, but it's an $8 million project. So when you look at what happens to the revenue, we're not going to say we're going to cut staff or we're going to take things away from you, but what we're going to say is we're going to probably have to delay projects. I do want to share the fact that in the Mariposa room, along with some of my information, is a map. This map here, this map, all of the orange you see has already made the decision, just like you have to not have them. You're only voting on the 3 yellow spots. Please allow them to continue. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is about Coral Mountain Resort, and it goes to all candidates. And the question is this: when the City Council and Mayor voted recently to reject Coral Mountain Resort, the reasons given were not water supply or traffic or other consequences of development. The principal reason given was that the proposed development did not meet the threshold for amending the city's general plan. So the question is, how would you each define that threshold for amending the general plan? And we start with Robert Silver.
Could you repeat the last part of that?
How would you define the threshold for amending the city's general plan?
That, I think, is up in the air. I don't even know how I would answer that if I'm not on the council right now. And they know the workings of everything. But as I said in my previous statement, that that's something that I would like to see that area developed properly. I'm in favor of progress and development. I believe, like you, in La Quinta. And I think that our future cannot wait for the future, if that makes sense. We have to take care of those things now. But, or what the threshold might be, I think that has to be determined about what's going to happen with the property. So I'd like to wait to hear what Linda Evans has to say about that.
Great.
Well, good. Linda Evans is up next.
Thank you for that segue. Yes, the council voted no, and thank you very much for those of you who provided both colorful, pleasant, professional, and some that were not so nice, quite honestly. And but that's just part of the passion that you all bring to this process. When you look at the zoning piece and you look at the precedent that's been set in the City of La Quinta, we have not made major changes in the actual zoning. We might have gone from a very small commercial to neighborhood commercial, or to a resident to some other type of resident combination mixed use. But we have not made a drastic change where we literally plop that type of commercial entity in a residential area. That was the threshold. I didn't mind the prospect of having those homes have an option of short-term rentals. Doesn't mean there was going to be 600 or 700. Not everybody in the commercial zone areas right now even have a permit. The people that are in the allowed zones, there's only 30% that even have a permit. The challenge is what that would have done to the community. Would it be built? Meriwether really has not managed a project that large in their development history if you look on the website. So when you look at the impacts of what that threshold looks like, one of my opponents has already said that we're starting the annexing process of the sphere of influence for Business and Rosa. We have hired a consultant to do the fiscal analysis to determine if it makes sense to grow our city in the future. And if we grow the city in the future, the general plan already has zones for those areas that are in our sphere of influence to then determine projects like this if they fit in those areas. So I've been asked, what happens if it comes back? Number one, it's not coming back before the end of the year. And if it comes back as something else, because there is an approved country club with a golf course, just like Andalusia has, and they're not done yet, it would start over. It would start by the staff application, the planning commission process before it gets to city council. People complain that it took too long. The city council had 3 meetings on this topic. The city council. We only had 3 meetings because the applicant asked for continuance. Otherwise, it probably would have been decided in 2. So, zoning, zoning, zoning.
Alan Woodruff.
I believe the question is, what is the threshold that would be acceptable for Coral Mountain? 0. Okay, this is a project that I was adamantly against from the very beginning for a very simple reason. It is for the elite. This is not something where you're taking your grandkids or your kids down to Coral Mountain to learn how to surf. It's a $10,000 a day. Yeah. Okay. So again, being new to the political scheme, I went to Centerra. I went over to the areas that were going to be impacted from this project. Most of the people out there were not so concerned about the water use as they were as the zoning change. Once you change that zone out there, Coney Island comes to your area, okay? There is no changing it back to it. The thing that you don't know is we're a charter city. They can change that zoning on a vote. They don't have to tell you. They don't have to ask you. They can do it at their own pace, okay? That's what a charter city has. That's why they're dangerous. You can change the rules in the middle of the game, okay? Coral Mountain for me is a very simple project to be against simply because of that reason. The people that are involved with it, like I said to you, are involved because they do not want that type of building coming out to this area. This is the target that you have on your back out here. You are in a very, very sparse area. You moved here for a reason. Don't let them destroy that. Coral Mountain to me was a deal breaker. Not because of the way that 60 million gallons of water a year, not 12 or 18 like they said. They didn't even cite the evaporation factor, okay? 60 million gallons a year in a drought, come on. That doesn't take a lot of 2 and 2 type of thinking. That's why I was against Coral Mountain. It will never be a project that I will ever be for. You can rest assured of that.
Joe Johnson.
I was against the Coral Mountain project from the very beginning. I donated money to the cause. But it's a number of reasons. First of all, I don't want people surfing in my water. It's that simple. We have a drought going on that we don't know any idea when it's going to end, if it will end. It's going to affect us. We need to conserve water everywhere place we can. And that's that simple. I don't believe we should be doing these projects that use a lot of water. I also cognizant, even though I don't live over around here, about the noise that would be generated at night from that wave pool, the lights, those type of things that neighbors would have to put up with if that went forward. And I felt bad for them. But my main thing is water. I believe in development. I believe in expansion. But it has to be very controlled. We have to be limited to the resources that we have, not just water, but power. We have a power shortage along this area too. If you ever had a brownout, you know what that's like. So we have to build this stuff slowly and go along. So even though I said I was a mediator, and I believe in compromise. I had no middle ground with Carl Mountain, so I was completely against it.
I'd like to remind the candidates that the question was, how would you each define the threshold for amending the general plan? John, thank you.
I can add to that, I still have about 40 seconds. It takes a compelling need to be able to change the general plan.
You've had your time, now it's John.
Thank you, and I was gonna mention that the question was about the zone changes for a general plan. The candidates up here, I don't think understood the question, they didn't understand it, they don't know what and how you go about amending the general plan. There's reasons on how you can amend the general plan. It's called a general plan for various reasons, because it is general, circumstances change, whether it's economic, environmental, that you can come in and request zone changes. And it's not usually done by a city, it's usually done by a developer. This land that we're on now, at one time, was zoned differently than what it is now. It was changed for various reasons. Also, it's land use. It's all about land use. As you go through, and the city has its land use criteria, we look at land use throughout the city. We review that on a constant basis with our city staff and with our environmental consultants on how the city is progressing, what the city's lacking, what we're looking forward in building, and we approach it that way. It's from a very technical standpoint that we look at general plan amendments. It's all about impacts on a community, whether the impacts are compatible to what's around the surrounding community, and we usually require environmental impact reports too, like we did here for Coral Mountain. There's a number of different reasons that you would change the zone, but it's not something that you do willy-willy. It's something that's takes a process. It's a very long process in most cases. The city council doesn't do it by itself. We don't just come out and say, oh, geez, let's change the general plan out in this area, just because we want to do it. That's not the way it's done. It's done by development standards. It's done by people who are proposing something that's different in an area, and the general plan usually stays pretty status quo as we go through and develop our community.
Brian Hammerhand.
I supported this plan because I believe that it will be another attraction for the city of La Quinta. But I wanted them to mitigate the problems, noise, light, and everything, and bring it back to the table. I'm a little concerned about NIMBYism. I'm a YIMBY now. Yes, in my backyard, if things work out. I'm looking for investment in my city. I'm looking for jobs. I'm looking for money coming in. And that's a really big concern right now. I know Corey got theirs, you got yours, and the Lucy got theirs, everybody's got theirs. Now all of a sudden we're going, oh no. We built a skate park across from a high school. Ask my kids about that. They'll tell you a lot of things about skate parks. But you know, we need to think about that. If these people are going to meet us halfway and take care of things and make us happy, I think it's a good investment for La Quinta. It brings people in. And that's how I feel about that. I know I did 4 years working for a consulting firm in Los Angeles, rezoning a large parcel of property. These guys are coming back. So we should make them do what we want and get everybody happy and encourage this. That's how I feel about that. That's why I supported Coral Mountain. Because I am really worried, looking at the NIMBY problem with the CV link, some of our projects are being stopped because some people are going, oh no, we got ours, you're not going to get that. But I understand there's issues, and we should work it out. And I think we can. Make them total mark and get what we want out of this, but I think it would be a good investment, like I said, jobs, and bring people in to La Quinta. Thank you.
Richard Gray.
I go back once again to the logic of facing any kind of question or situation. In my mind, there should be sort of tripwires, certain things that will be completely against what the zoning is or what the general plan is, should be noted out and handled as quickly as possible. I worked for the city for 5 years with the landscape an architectural review board. It was one step in which three of us were facing a group from whatever the project was, and they would explain it. And we sometimes would have people come in who were very interested in a project that was coming into their area and wanted to sit in and listen to what was going on. It made a very big difference in my mind for the developers to realize what kind of questions are going to come up. What are people going to talk about? Can you have water features in your yard? Can you have a fireplace again? There are a lot of things that are going on that are changing, and as we change things, we have to be ready for change. I'm ready for us to be sure that we have as much openness to the citizens of the area and of the city before we make any changes in the general plan. Small changes may only be having a coffee shop rather than having a pharmacy or something like that. It may not be a very big issue, but Coral Mountain was a huge issue. CB Link was a huge issue. In the case of Coral Mountain, finally it came to a vote. 2 years after they started. That's way too long for anybody, and that means that whatever project is going to come up is going to be factored at a much higher return in order to pay for the delay and the extra expense. So we have to find procedures. Perhaps the Architectural and Landscape Review Board would be a good idea to come back again, but we have to find ways to identify what are going to be major issues before they come. Thank you.
Deborah McGarry.
Thank you. Okay, so how many of you have ever attended a general plan review at a city? Okay. This is not taken lightly, all right? I've attended almost every one of them here in the Coachella Valley. I do that for part of what I have to do for my job. I have to understand what's being presented, what the city is talking about, where it's going forward. It is the Bible for 25 or 30 years, okay? They don't make changes to it easily or lightly. This was going to be a change to the general plan, and it was going to change actual design of what had been approved, as Linda had mentioned before. It is approved for housing and for golf course. So that is what the general plan states. So for them to come in and make all these changes, that is the reason why the city council made the decision that they did. I mean, and that's how it works. So again, and I wanted to also make a point that developers are allowed a due process. When you own a piece of land, it's a due process. They're allowed to figure out, as long as it works within the general plan, on what they need to do, all right? They then bring it forward. If they want to make changes to it, then it goes to a planning commission and has to go through a secret review if there is one that's required. All these things are in place to make sure that we have the quality of life that we have here. That is the reason why they have these general plans. It gives also an opportunity when, let's just say you have an opportunity to go to those, either as a developer or builder, you can go ahead and make changes, you can make recommendations. That's the time in which you do it, is during that review. It's a public process, everyone can come out, they can review it, provide comments. So those are things just to take in consideration of how that works. That's how the threshold is for a general plan, is that this is the Bible, this is how it works, every city has one, and that's the reason why it happened the way it did. So, thank you.
Our next question has to do with public safety, and it's for all 8 candidates. La Quinta contracts with the Riverside County Sheriff's Office for law enforcement protection within city boundaries. 1/3 of the city's operating budget is spent on police protection. What is your level of satisfaction with that service? Are we getting our money's worth, or do you think the city needs its own police department? We're going to start with Richard Gray.
Yes, I just recently went to a neighborhood watch meeting that they're starting back up again, and I congratulate the people that work at the city and the sheriff deputies and other cops, the citizens on patrol, that spent their time and their interest, and they want us to move forward and try to get neighborhood watches active again. And I presume that in fact is something that has not happened very much. I think part of the issue on security and safety, for example, may be encouraging closed communities to either hide in their wall, to put in anti-personal devices, that will identify when somebody's jumping over the wall, anything that makes a defense against crime so that crime doesn't happen. As far as our deal with the sheriff, we have to be good negotiators. I would hope that anyone that is elected would be a good negotiator. I don't know how much more City Link is going to cost us in sheriffing and policing of different kinds. And I think that we have to have more, if at all possible, more combination with the security personnel in different close communities with the sheriff, so that we have, and with cops, with the citizens on patrol, which would be a very good thing at some of the soft targets like schools and churches and sports events. The more that we have uniformed people, even if they're not sworn officers, they're not armed, but uniformed people that let anybody know that there is somebody who will call for help, somebody who will be aware of what's happening. So I think it's a combination of the sheriff's department with what they're doing, and we have to work with them on the fact that the cost just goes up much more than even inflation every year so far. So thank you very much. Thank you. So for time. So in general, I'm very satisfied with the sheriff's department. The people I met are extremely nice, and I think we'll go forward.
Deborah McGarry.
That's great. Okay, so public safety. Public safety, of course, is very important to all of us. I am very supportive with the with the police department. It is 42% of the overall budget for the city of La Quinta. That is for the police and for the fire, and both of them are contracted out through Riverside County. I also did attend the neighborhood watch. It would be nice to see a little bit more involvement in that, because I think there's ways in which we could educate ourselves on how to make ourselves safer, so we're not involved in too many hate crimes. I was also very much impressed with what the sheriff's department said, is that we really do have a very low crime rate here in the city of La Quinta. They also talked about, with regards to traffic instances, that it is actually one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in the entire Coachella Valley with traffic incidences. So that's good to know. But I will say this, if something were to be proposed, if there was another opportunity where we could partner up with other cities, as long as it's low. I mean, you want to keep the cost low, but we still want those first responders. But I also want to make a comment in regards to what the first responders bring to us, the police department. They bring the drug task force. They bring the 911 dispatch. They bring all these other programs that if we had our own, we would probably still have to contract with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. So I am very supportive of them. I also, just to share, part of my job is actually working very closely with the first responders. I am certified for being a first responder. I have my card and my badge, so that if there is an emergency, then I'm able to go ahead and head out on those emergencies. So I do work with them very closely. Thank you.
Robert Silk.
Well, I remember a few years ago when we did have a problem in the Cove area that we proposed a neighborhood watch. But if we could find, because we have someone walk around an entire block, they probably cover about 100 homes on both sides of the street. And if you see something that's out of line, to report it. I don't think that La Quinta is ready for our own police forces yet. If we increase our population to over 75,000 or so, then I think we should consider that. But right now, I think we're doing fine with the sheriff's department, and they've been taking very good care of us. But if there is a problem, we don't want the neighbors to interfere with whatever the problem is, that they should be reported to someone. We could have more security patrol cars that would be drawn around. In the Cove area especially, there's 2 ways in and 4 ways out. The 2 ways in are Eisenhower or Bermudas, and the 4 ways out are those 2, plus a higher balloon ride or a hike out. So if somebody commits something, it's reported right away. If you block off those exits, you can probably catch them. But I feel that as of now, we're doing just fine. Thanks.
Brian Henry.
I, for years, have felt we should have our own police department. I think we could address a lot of our problems with our own units. I know it's a big cost, but the cost may just keep going up. So should we bite the bullet and take care of this now? Would it solve a lot of our short-term rental problems if we had our own police force who could be on the spot? I mean, everyone says we're low on crime, but then I hear all my neighbors complaining about tools being stolen and this and that. So I'm getting mixed feelings about our protection. I think that we should investigate our own police force. Palm Springs has one, Indio has their own. I think that we should have our own police force. And I've said that for years, and I think the longer we wait, I'm afraid that we start paying for other things that sheriffs are doing, the thermal police station, other things that don't really affect us in La Quinta. So I'm going to be a little selfish about this. I am supporting our own police force. I think it's time. And the money's just going to go up. Maybe we should, like I say, stop and just do it ourselves right now. I think we could tailor our problems. That's how I feel. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
John Pena.
Thank you. First of all, let me say, I am not a fan of defund the police. La Quinta and this city council, law enforcement, it's its top priority. That's what we're here for. That's what we have stated to you, that we're going to give you as much protection as we can. Talking about our own police force, I don't think we need our own police force. I think it's an undue expense for this city. It's very expensive. Years ago, we hired a company called Matrix. They're made up of ex-law enforcement officers to look at our sheriff's contract to make sure that we're getting what we pay for, that we're not spending our dollars foolishly and spending them on things that actually make a difference. And we really do pay attention to what they tell us and how they can look at that contract with law enforcement. Law enforcement obviously is what we really are passionate about. We hear about crime, and the city council has a reserve budget for any spikes in crime. If something pops up, if we're having a number of burglaries in an area, or we're having traffic accidents in an area, commercial robberies, most of our crime is up in that commercial corridor from shoplifting. And we put together teams up there. You'll see them now, especially as we get into the shopping season. They'll be on bikes. They will be in undercover cars, looking for people who are taking advantage of people that are not paying attention or somehow distracted. But we will continue to fund our police as much as they need, and we will continue to make sure that our city is safe, that you feel secure, and that our residents and visitors are safe as well. Thank you.
Alan Woodruff.
Okay, as far as being happy with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, well, of course, I mean, what else do we have? We don't have an independent police force, so we have to be happy with them. They've got the toughest job in the world. I don't think anybody in here would like to be a policeman in this time. The code has different issues than the Trilogy does. I don't think that you get pilfered every night for your mail. I don't think there's petty theft as much as there is in the code. These are the problems that the citizens of the code have definitely been responding to. They're very, very concerned about the mail pilfering that happens every night on a regular basis. There is a solution to it. When we were in the city council, I had the opportunity to speak to a Riverside County Sheriff's Department and was curious about how we could stop something like this. It's very simple. It took me 30 minutes to discover how we could stop the mail pilfering through the use of unmarked cars, not the ones with the big bumpers on the front, but actual unmarked cars. And my thinking is that once they get caught, once you get these people, they will spread the word. Thieves have an internet or a communication that they know once we're on them, the party's over. But it is definitely a problem that we have in the code on a regular basis that you don't have here. I don't think I've ever even seen a Riverside County Sheriff out here. So as far as being satisfied with them, you bet. I've got a lot of clients that are triathletes that are Riverside County Sheriffs. So I understand what their problem is. Every sheriff will tell you, I just want to go home safely. That's what this is about. The cove has a different situation because we do not have lighting. We're very dark at night. It does not make a very safe atmosphere for a young man in a patrol car. It's that simple. As far as being satisfied with Riverside County Sheriff's, 100%.
Linda Evans?
Thank you very much, and yes, I've seen Riverside Sheriffs out here, and thank you for the retired policemen, firemen, doctors, and nurses that live in Trilogy and help support your emergency preparedness plan. I always said the first time I visited, I wanted to live here in case the big one happened, because you are completely self-sufficient with your team captains and the like. We spend $18 million a year on our police contract with Riverside Sheriff's Department, and it's well worth it. And, well, I'm happy with it, but could always be better, and I'll say why. And that's because COVID has changed the world, and COVID has changed crime. And there's opportunists out there, and part of the challenges with petty theft is the fact that people are leaving their purse on their front seat, or they're leaving the garage door, or their gate unlocked, and we have to be conscious of each other. And I'm glad the Neighborhood Watch, thank you Sally Shelton for the work that you do in the Cove, and many others to make sure that we're watching out for each other. Between fire and police, it's about 42% of our budget. We get about a 5 to 7% increase each year from Riverside Sheriff. But the reality is if we were to fund our own police department, we would be taking on all of that liability and the pension burden. And it'd be in the millions and millions of dollars. And the reality is there's constant recruitment challenges. We would just be outbidding to try to get those deputies to move over should we have our own. So what happens, we collaborate. We collaborate greatly. John mentioned the matrix study and how we looked at what we're spending our money on. We did see that we were spending more than our fair share. We provide more mutual aid to the unincorporated areas of Coachella and Thermal. And we stopped some of that. But we've also done a matrix study to look at Palm Desert, Indian Wells, and La Quinta, because that commercial corridor, that's everybody's theft problem. So if we can garner pricing and officers that can patrol from Palm Desert to La Quinta and save some money collectively, we'll all stay with Riverside Sheriff Department because it's working for all of us. Another important part is our school resource officers. We pay for half of the school resource officers so that they can build relationships and be in the schools and work on building those relationships, building trust with kids, building the ROTC program, the cadet program, and I'm going to say I'm happy we need more resources. Thank you.
Joe Johnson?
2 minutes to close it.
I'm happy with the Sheriff's Department, the job they do. I actually patrol the streets around here at 2 o'clock in the morning with the sheriff deputies just to see what's going on. And I think that they do a great job. One thing I could bring to the table is I was in charge of a lot of different fraud units in LA County, and I know how to set those things up to supplement the sheriff in a way that'll work in conjunction with the district attorney's office. That's what I did before. And we can do that. Seniors getting these phone calls and falling prey to people on the phone, phony ads, things like that. That's something that we can enhance without it costing a lot of money. But as far as the Sheriff's Department, they do a great job. As Linda mentioned, the liability of getting your own force could be potentially tremendous. And you end up with the guys who can't get a job anywhere else. So things, we keep the Sheriff's Department, we keep them on their toes, of course, we don't just give them everything they want. But we try to work together with them and do it and bring in some outside help that hasn't been done before. I don't know why, because Riverside actually is part of the Southern California Crime Task Force that I was a member of. But they didn't really participate a lot probably because of the distance, but we can fix that. So, that's how I feel about the Sheriff's Department budget. Let's keep it, and if we need more, we need more. But I think they do a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is just for the 5 city council members. The mayor's supposed to stay relaxed.
Okay. We can't use this yet. All right.
Holding up as a free drink. Okay, this topic is travertine. City staff is currently reviewing a proposal called travertine, which would build 1,200 single-family units and a 100-room wellness hotel on 800 acres on the other side of the berm. The berm, you may recall, was designed to hold back floodwaters from the nearby mountains. The project project would require an overpass over the berm at Avenue 62, right behind Trilogy. It would require another overpass at the berm for emergency vehicles where Madison snakes right behind Trilogy. What are your thoughts about allowing residential and commercial development on the other side of the berm?
Thank you. I recently was looking into this, and you know, as far as development's great if you have the resources to do it, but not at the cost of what it would do to the environment. I don't believe that this is an appropriate project. I don't feel that it fits right now with anything that we want here. So as far as this particular project, I don't see it going forward. It shouldn't go forward. If we could have something smaller that doesn't affect the berm and doesn't affect the natural resources and the beautiful area over there, we'll look into it. It's always got to be open. But as far as that project, from what I've seen published so far, I have 3.
See, Richard Gray.
Thank you. Mark. Come on, it's green light. There we go. Thank you. As far as this particular project is concerned, there are a lot of different avenues that have to be looked at. Who is going to pay for the bridges? Who is going to develop the project? How much money does the city have to put into that? And I think that one of the things that we ought to be doing in all of the different projects, for example, Coral Mountain, instead of having only 600 estate properties is what they proposed, there should also have been a proposal for lower income housing, because they're expecting to have a lot of people work at that particular project. And as we do building in different parts of the city, we should do more building for lower income residents. Now, in this particular case, I think that it has to be examined from the environmental point of view, from the cost point of view, and from who is going to benefit in the long run. How many people, what are the conditions, will they have to be, have their rental or their purchase have to be supplied? And is there any other place in the city that could do the same thing with a much lower cost and much lower impact? I think all of that has to be considered, and I don't have the answer yet. Thank you.
Deborah McGarry.
Okay, so Tabertine has, I remember when Tabertine was presented and actually went onto the plan for the city of La Quinta, probably, I may have been in my 20s, I think. Seriously, it has been on the books for a long time. So again, going back to what I said earlier, the developer has a right to go ahead and develop their land. They're allowed to go ahead and move forward with what they want to do. But again, they're taking all the risk. They're the ones that are going to have to take the risk. They're the ones that are going to have to do the CEQA review. They're the ones that are going to have to make a decision on how they're going to manage the bridge. They're the ones that are going to have to bring that forward to the city. When they bring it forward to the city, then it goes to the planning department. The planning department will go ahead and take a look at it. It'll go to the planning commission, and then it goes to city council. There is a full process in regards to how this is going to have to be managed. So, of course, all those impacts will be discussed when they do a CEQA review, which is going to be their environmental study. So in all honesty, we'll see how it comes forward. We all know right now we're looking at an 8% cost for housing for interest rates right now. So there's a large cost. There's a large challenge right now with regards to supply, in regards to bringing supplies in. Honestly, I don't foresee it happening in the next, couple of years. So I'll just say that. But again, it's been on the books for quite some time. We'll see how it moves forward. But again, it is their risk, and we're going to have to make those decisions and put everything together. So in regards to the environmental review, that will have to be decided by the study. Thank you.
Brian Henry.
I haven't given this much thought. I know that we need housing, but I know that they'll probably start at $500,000 or more. I know there's supply chain problems. I don't think we need to think that much about this right now. If they can fix this for us and make it look good, down the road, there are water issues, there are building issues. I don't think this is a big concern for us right now. As you say, they have the right to bring it forward, but I'm not sure it's going to solve a lot of our housing problems in the Coachella Valley. It'll probably be for a certain retirement community, and that's not what we need right now. That's all I'm going to say about that.
John Pena.
Thank you. And travertine has been around for a number of years, probably decades. It's a great piece of property back up here. If you hike it, it's a wonderful piece of property. As a city council person, it's difficult for us to pronounce on a pending project. We can't do that. I'm surprised to hear candidates say that they would vote no before even hearing any of the facts. I can tell you though that they will not get any special treatment as far as development standards go. They will go through the review process just like Trilogy did, just like Andalusia did, just like PGA West did. They have to go through a certain process, and that process will be lengthy, and the review will be looked at carefully by both the Planning Commission, our environmental consultants. They will have to do all of the studies, all the CEQA studies, all the environmental impact reviews. So it's something that is not taken lightly. And as we go forward, as they move their plan forward, because it's changed over the years, I'm sure it will be totally different by the time it gets to the city council, if it ever gets that far in the development process. But we will also take into account all of the residents that are going to be impacted by it, the roads, the flood control areas that need to be designed for it as well too. So there's a lot that goes on to reviewing a project.
Thank you. Okay, our next question is about annexations, and it's just for the mayoral candidates. We're going to start with Linda Evans, and the question is, the city's future annexation area covers a lot of unincorporated property, most of which is farmland across Monroe from Trilogy, as well as the Vista Santa Rosa area to the east. What type of development should be allowed or not allowed on those properties? Like industry, low-income housing, high-density housing, what do you think?
It's not necessarily about what I think, it also goes back to the general plan, because even the sphere of influence is in our general plan and some of those designations. I remember we had a financial advisory commissioner who did not like, he lived in PGA, one of the elements PGA, and they were building on the other side of Monroe. They were proposing a commercial area, and he wanted to fight that with a few of his neighbors. And the reality is it went through the county planning commission, and it was approved because it was designed and it was zoned to do so. So when you look at the sphere of influence, it's a designated area that the Land Area Information Commission or the county already designates for you. So if the city wants to grow, you have to do your SOI. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing a study right now to see what would that look like and can we take on that financial burden. Because I know many of you know that we don't get property tax from all of the developments, Trilogy, Madison Street, all the way to Monroe, but we support those with police and fire and infrastructure. And we are proud of the fact that we have all of you and many other developments like Madison Club and NLC and Brick Ranch, all in the City of La Quinta. Come 2033, 34, when the redevelopment bond expires for the county, we hopefully will get our entitled 7 cents on the dollar for property tax. So we're looking at our future, and what does that future look like if we want to grow, and we want to have that controlled, balanced growth to say put more commercial in areas that are not here in your backyard. And that makes sense from a zoning and general plan standpoint. Can we afford to start doing that infrastructure? Can we afford to do police and fire? All the things it takes, utilities. Energy is our biggest challenge going forward. IID is a huge challenge, and you need people that understand the process of that entity and what we're going to do going forward. So as far as what would I like there, I would like to make sure that we adhere to the general plan, adhere to the zoning. The developers have the financial burden of coming to us. We don't incentivize them with things. They have to pay prevailing wage anytime we say, how about if we offer you an acre of land? They can't do that. So the sphere of influence is exciting. It's part of our future. It may not go forward if financially it doesn't make sense. Then it'll just sit as our SOI. Thank you.
Alan Woodruff.
Controlled growth, okay, this is a project that obviously Vista Santa Rosa, the people there that are going to be annexed, do not want to be annexed, okay? Development in the desert, okay? This. Oh, wait. I like the song. It was a good one. The desert is a different type of entity. We're not in Sierra Mesa. We're not over in San Diego in open land. This is pristine land, and the desert needs to be preserved. You didn't move out to the Trilogy for more homes to be next to you. Travertine, okay, 1,200 homes. What's next? What is next? The next project. When you open up the door to the developers, they're like rabid dogs. They come through it. They don't even look back on you. They don't care about your community. They're trying to make some money, okay? And that's what development is about. It is not a matter of making the community a better place. It is a matter of making guys from Los Angeles with developers more money. Plain and simple. I'll say the subject again. You did not move here from wherever for this type of project to come into your area. Travertine should not even be discussed. It's too much, too big. We're in a drought. We are in a drought. Lipstick on a pig is what Coral Mountain was. This is just more of it. Vista Rosa, the areas out here need to be preserved. I was talking with a gentleman the other day about how do we do this. Find a little mouse. Find something federal to preserve your land around you so they can't build on it. That mouse might save you.
Dr. Silk?
All right, I'm in favor of annexation. That's how La Quinta got to be where it is, by 3 other annexations. And I was in favor of taking over Vista Santa Rosa 8-10 years ago. We still have an opportunity under our sphere of influence. In fact, I don't know if you know that 10-15 years ago there was a plan to build a cross parkway, Avenue 62, that would start at the Jack McCockern Airport and run monorail north all the way through Palm Springs and Desert Hot Springs. I thought that was a very good idea if we had the redevelopment authority money at the time we couldn't use, or we could use, but it never went much further because you had to get all the stops in between, and every few miles you'd have a station. In fact, there'd also be a bicycle CV link path going up with 500 cars parked. So I'm in favor of all of these opportunities that come our way. But with this Santa Rosa, I drove through there many times, and they want to be part of La Quinta and not Coachella. And I hope that the council and the mayor continue to do what they can to take that land now for pennies on the dollar, which could be worth billions of dollars later on. And also, Jack McCockern Airport, we proposed the county to make that into a national airport, so you'd have non-stop flights from there to San Diego, Orange County, LA, San Francisco, Phoenix, Las Vegas, things of that nature. Just too far to go to Palm Springs Airport, even from here. An Uber, might as well rent a car for a week. And I think it's time that we start to think about the future of this area and make the decisions now.
Thank you.
That we could be implemented in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, our next question is for all the candidates, and it's about water supply. The question is this: how should the City of La Quinta respond to current drought conditions, as well as long-term concerns about the valley's water supply? Specifically, how do you propose to deal with new development and existing residential and commercial water use? And we start with Brian Henry.
Boy, another tough one. I think that we should be conservative in development. This is a concern. We don't know what the future holds. I know that we stopped some other developments in other parts of Riverside County because of services and water. I think that we have a lot of water features around, but I think there are 42 pools at La Quinta Hotel. 42 pools. How many pools do you need? So this is going to impact everybody. I think it's definitely in regards to development, we've got to think about water. I know that we have a lot of water underneath us. Enough for 100 years as I understand it. And we've been replenishing it with the Colorado River. That may stop, and we may have to start going into our own water, and that will have to take this much more seriously, how we do things in the future. I know right now everybody's talking about this and talking about that development, but I know conservatively wise, we may have a serious water problem. And that will influence any new developments. And we should probably deal with it as it comes along. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Linda Evans.
Thank you very much. The City of La Quinta has taken water conservation seriously for a number of years. At the last drought, because they're cyclical, of course, we implemented a lot of turf reduction, not only in our city properties, but also in the way that we did landscape designs for our perimeter landscapes that are not HOA owned and managed, as well as our medians of our roads all throughout the city. So we can make them drought tolerant, we can make them low water usage, and put the right plant palettes in there so that we're lessening that. And as Deborah talked a little bit earlier about regionalization, one of the things as Conservation Commission Energy Environmental Resources Committee that I chair with CBAG is talking about that from a regional standpoint. And when the governor initially put out the 35% reduction, we as a valley already achieved that. So the challenge is how do we get penalized because we've done our share of conservation in this entire valley, and yet they want more. We sit on the second largest aquifer in the North American continent, here in the Coachella Valley. Not to be wasteful, but the reality is there is water. We still have to do our job. And going forward, when you look at development, we do have to look at those landscape designs and what makes sense. Do large lakes make sense? Do pools make sense? I wouldn't say ban them all from any new development, but what do we do as a region, what do we do as a city that we can all help that cause? Because it's not going to go away, and while it may be worse in other areas than here, we have functioned very well, and there's always room for improvement. But I'm proud of the efforts that our residents have made, the feedback that they've provided, the suggestions that they've made that we share with the regional agencies that we serve on, as well as CDWD, because that really is our water agency and largely their responsibility to do so. And they do have turf reduction programs now as well, if you want to do more desert landscaping. Thank you.
Richard Gray.
How to turn this thing on finally. The first word that you have to do with water is more. We need more water. We need to find ways to bring the water in. If it's pipelines that are solar powered and siphon affected, to bring from the Pacific Ocean to the Salton Sea, to bring it from the Sea of Cortez to the Salton Sea, anything that will help us get more water, because we're not going to get an awful lot more rain. And this water could be, even with a very simple condensation, passive condensation, you can change salty water that comes in and get out of it an awful lot of good water that can be used. So the first thing we need with water is we need more water. If we're going to have more people, if we're going to have more businesses, if we're going to have more control of our environment, we need not only to take care and be conserving of the water, but we need more water. The other thing that comes up when you're talking about water, is that if we do have a big flood, like I believe we had in the mid-70s, where they washed away a town and part of the railroad and so forth, we have these retention basins now. They're not really connected to the whitewater wash, and that's something that in the long run perhaps should be handled in order to get the water to not be as much of a problem for us and to get it into the wash. The idea of conserving water is, I would really like to see if there's been any study on the part of the city as to how much water they have been able to save by the way that they have done their retention basins. And I noticed that they have an awful lot of sprinkling going on now with overseeding, which most of the rest of us have been told we shouldn't do overseeding, we should have nice brown lawns. So there's a question of fairness, there's a question of conserving, there's a question of measuring and make sure that we're getting an effect for it, but more than anything else, we need more water.
Robert Sill.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've been to Israel has the answer for this. They're in the Tyler Desert, and I've seen it. And the salination salt water plants changes over to water, and they're fine. And they share that technology with the Arab countries also. They came over here to California, and Jerry Brown, back in his day, and Governor Newsom, and they said they could build these right out, which would take care of all our water shortages. They know how to take water from air. These processes are today working, and I feel that if we need more water, that there are many ways that we're just not exploring or going further with this future technology. So that's we should look into that.
Alan Woodruff.
Well, water usage usually comes right behind conserving, okay? So this is not a hard subject for me to talk about. When you had Coral Mountain out here, you had a project that was delivered to you in a certain way that really was not its true identity. They were using, I think, something, they started with 18 million, went to 12 million gallons for the wave park, but it was decided to an independent environmental impact report that there was 60 million gallons that would be used for that wave, just that wave alone. So conservation of water is definitely on the mind of anybody that's in city government or the Coachella Valley Water District. We have, I think, probably over 120 golf courses in the area. They didn't build them because of the rain above, they built them from the water below. But honestly, I think we all know by now, the rubber has hit the asphalt. The Colorado River is drying up. We need to conserve our water, even here in the Coachella Valley. Look, we all know that golf is king. We wouldn't be here if golf is not a very, very big part of the seed in the Coachella Valley. But non-potable water has to be used, the non-drinking water. I will note to you, Coral Mountain was going to use drinking water. You could not non-potable water in a surf park. It'll cause great problems for the people involved. It will infect them. So on conserving water, that's as simple to me as the 2 and 2 factor. It must be done. Huge developments have to be looked at and scrutinized much more because of their water usage. We're at that point right now. We were biggies. This valley used a lot of water for a lot of different reasons, for golfing, tourism, etc. We now have to start watching our developments because of the water use. It's just that simple.
Joe Johnson.
As I said before, earlier questions about water usage in Washington development. This is not just a city issue, it's a regional issue. The problem goes back to Irvin Hoover, back when he was Secretary of Interior, and they made the allocations based on 5 or 6 years of heavy rainfall. Well, that didn't happen anymore, and it went into a drought. And so it's always going to be short for everybody downhill from there. So it's going to happen. Maybe one day it'll rain for 5 years, who knows? But until then, we just have to go along with conserving what we can, control development as much as possible, but still keep growing, and keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the region, because we don't have the pick of lavish water we get. Coachella Valley Water is somebody who's going to do it. Because let's face it, most of the water is used by agriculture, not the people. And at one point, excuse me, at one point there's going to be cutbacks there too. So let's conserve what we can and watch our development and pray for rain.
Deborah McGarry.
Okay, so water. First of all, as we all know, it's a state mandate that we have to reduce in our water. I'm happy to hear that the City of La Quinta has actually met those mandates. Again, CDWD is the agency that manages over who is going to be able to use the water use, and basically they're the ones that provide what's called a will serve letter, stating that they will be able to provide the water use to any new development or building or whatever else is going on. So they're the ones that make the decision, it's not the city. However, the City of La Quinta can help with regards to making sure that the plants that developers are allowed to use are allowed to.
Okay,
And so with regards to the, I hate talking as this board man is looking over there. Hope he's okay. You okay, Joe?
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. I could cut my comments short. But the fact is that, CDWG provides a well-served water. In regards to what's happening in agriculture, yes. They've already started telling the agricultural community that they have to cut back. As I said earlier, I cover Imperial County. I cover that and hear all the different things that are happening down in Imperial County. And the farmers are now looking at how they're going to change the crops to be able to go ahead and meet those mandates with regards to water reduction. But the city's doing the right thing. They've changed out, if you've not noticed, on Highway 111, they made that all, the artificial grass as opposed to real grass. They've done other things. I think that moving forward, something that the cities could possibly look at is, do we want to possibly put together and require a desert scape for all new developments, and making sure that that kind of moves forward. Also, I will say this, not everybody here has attended all the council meetings over the last 6 months. I have. And I will share that the city council actually brought this as part of their study session on Tuesday last week about turf reduction and what can be done if there's any possibility. CDWG came in, provided some information. I think that one thing that we could do is actually partner more with CDWG, get the message out on the different programs that they have that would help to reduce water.
John Pena.
Thank you. Joe, you want to take a break? Okay. Getting back to water. First of all, I have to give a shout out to CDWG. Their past directors have managed water very, very well here in the desert. We are a desert. They recognized that years ago and started building their water supplies here some time ago, decades ago, and that's why we have the aquifer that we have. So working in conjunction with CDWG, as has been stated here, so I'm not going to repeat that, we have programs in place to reduce water usage, whether it's developments or parks and recreation. The state has notes that parks are essential. We need to water some of our parks so that children can play in grass and not play in dirt. And we're also finding out that turf, natural grass, is not necessarily environmentally compatible to a lot of different things too. So there's new studies now on artificial turf going forward. We will continue to address those issues on water. We always have, where the mandates come down from the state, we adhere to those mandates. Sometimes they don't necessarily apply to the desert because they'll always look at from the Los Angeles area residents, and hopefully those Angelinos won't come in and want to try to take our water. That was one of the questions that I asked CDWG is there a possibility that they can come in and take some of our water? The answer is kind of, we don't know yet. It's a gray area. So that's a concern that we have too. We'll continue to work with CDWG to make sure that La Quinta has plenty of water coming forward.
Our next question is the final question. We have a lot of great questions from all of you, but we're running out of time. So this will be the last one. It's for the mayoral candidates, and it's breaking news question. Just on Friday, the Coachella Valley Association of Governments announced that it's been recommended to receive $36 million from the state to build a 15-mile extension of the CB bike and pedestrian trail through La Quinta, Indio, and Coachella. When do you expect this project to be completed, and what impact will it have on businesses in the Highway 111 corridor thing? Linda Evans first.
So if you read that press release, my quote was in there about how excited I am about what's called the Arts and Music line. And part of our 111 corridor plan is to take some of that load off just 111 when people are commuting from A to B, Indian Wells to Indio to Coachella. and it's all part of the connecting the CD link with our Bear Creek Trail, the connectors through the channel, and onto Avenue 48, so that there is a safe way. It's called Alternative Transportation Programs, and that's grant money. It's not money the city's putting out, just like CD Link. We're not paying for anything for CD Link. It's managed through grant money that Coachella Valley Association of Governments got. So while it might be used more heavily during the festivals, which would again eliminate the need for potentially more buses and shuttles going to the festival grounds, it also provides the ability for all people in all levels of income and activity and age to recreate in a safe environment down 48 to get from point A to point B, or however far they want to go. And that's the beauty of this. It's an interactive, it includes art components, it includes music components. And imagine going through the stroll like you do here, it's a beautiful property, and have some little bit of entertainment along the way. It's a teaching opportunity for kids. It's along our corridor on Avenue 48 where we have wonderful affordable housing communities for seniors and for families, where they'll be able to utilize that as a family, as individuals, as groups. And so this has been a collaborative effort with the City of Indio and Coachella, as well as its CVAC group in its entirety. And again, we've been applying for this for a few years, and you have to meet certain income levels, diversity levels, a number of components to save the environment, reduce the carbon emissions that would be from cars utilizing that path. And it's a great way to be able to add a transportation element that's pedestrian friendly, could walk, bike, and maybe take cars off the road. Thank you.
Robert Silk.
I remember when the CD link was first proposed, and I lived in Marina del Rey for 25 years before I moved here. I was the honorary mayor there, appointed by the county for the San Incorporated. And I worked on the bicycle path because we wanted to connect Venice to Playa del Rey. And some of the cities didn't want it, but we built it anyways. And then Malibu came in, and now the path runs all the way from Malibu all the way down to Redondo Beach. Of course, they have the ocean and the sand on one side, and of course the cities on the other. And when this proposal came up, I wrote an article with some big print because I wanted to know who was paying for it. Is the city paying for it? Is the county? Is CVAG? And I could never get that answer from Tom Cook. And I know that Jim was on the board. And I'd like to see it to be done properly. Because with the windstorms that we get, everything could be covered in one night. And homeless people, I'm not sure where it's going to go because I don't know if I would want street because of driving through my backyard in case the neighborhood or something, such occasions. So when I heard about this, I like the idea, but it has to be done properly. I don't like it. So 48, I think we still need two car lanes in each direction, so I'm not sure about what the final designs would be. So I think there's a lot more thought that has to go into it about those other things. Cameras and security telephones. I don't think you put golf carts on it because, as you know, a golf cart can go for 6 or 7 miles, has to be charged overnight. So there's a lot more that I think has to be looked into for this plan.
Thank you. Al Woodruff.
Well, in answer to the direct question of $36 million, I mean, you can't scoff at $36 million. That's a great addition to the CD link being completed. When this project first came to my attention, the first thing that like Bob, I was concerned about the cost. They cited costs of $100 million to build basically a bike path from Palm Springs to Coachella. Okay, that's my thinking. As I started to look at it a little bit more, I started to realize that the safety factor for bicyclists in the Coachella Valley along the 111 highway was terrible. We were losing people, they were getting killed. So I changed my mind about the CD link. I think it's a great idea. I think it is definitely something that is needed for the safety of the people that come here for the tourists. You don't want the people coming from Indiana getting mowed down on the 111. But the CD link is built. If you want to take a look at it, it's dirt now. okay? Just drive down to the end of Washington, go out to where the wash is, and you can look where they've graded it. It's gonna be a good thing when they finish it. The question has always been for me is how long does this thing take? They've got $100 million. Tom Kirk has said many, many times, we've got the money, we can build it. We're waiting for it. So to have the extra $36 million, maybe that will boost it into reality. But as far as it stands right now, that CV link at the end of Washington Street is nothing more than a dirt path. You need to build it. Plain and simple.
Okay, thank you. I encourage all of you, if you didn't get your questions answered, the candidates, I'm sure, will be milling about afterwards, and you can pigeonhole them and get some more answers. I'd like to thank my co-moderator, John Perry, for his excellent questions, and a special shout out to Daryl Tyerman for taking the lead in organizing this event, as well as the rest of Trilogy's Communications Committee, Helene Gordon and Carolyn Stevenson, and our timekeeper, Ian Titania, at First Service Residential. And we also thank John Miller's team for filming this event and supplying the water bottles to everyone. Most of all, we want to thank you, the audience, for attending this important event. You know, it was 236 years ago that Thomas Jefferson declared that the government you elect is the government you deserve. And as one of the founding fathers, Jefferson believed that a well-informed electorate preserves democracy and benefits American society as a whole. We hope that this town hall has left you more informed on important issues so that you indeed get the La Quinta you deserve. In closing, we remind everyone to drop off your ballots in person, just out here in the clubhouse, or to vote in person on November 8th. We also want to remind you to attend Trilogy's speaker series on Wednesday at 2:30, when we're going to have historian Mitch Kaiser here to discuss local earthquakes and landslides and floods, and what implications they have for the future. And now we're going to go to closing statements, which will be 3 minutes from each candidate. And I'll put them the reverse order.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. Sorry, 2 minutes. We're cutting in here.
Yeah, why don't we start? We'll just start at the far end with Alan Woodruff, and just come down this way. How about that?
Drink over, I'm sure. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience, and I mean that sincerely. I know a lot of subject matter has been discussed. You've developed a certain amount of opinion for us as far as your candidates for November 8th. I want to be your mayor. I am a very hardworking person. Like I said, I work from 4 o'clock in the morning till 7:30 every day. I'm a triathlete. I'm a coach. I'm an animal advocate. I run ARF, which is All Animal Rescue Foundation. I'm very big in that, and I have been for the last 15 years. I've been retired for 20 years from my own company. So I have the time, and obviously I have the intellect to do this job. It was one of the things that I had 2 things that I wanted to be your mayor, but I had to get through. One was my wife. I still live. Happy wife is a happy life. Okay? And the second for me was my animal advocacy. I rescue animals every day. I'm on the phone rescuing dogs from Ramona Humane Society. I've got 50, 60 cats I feed every day. I'm in it. Okay, I'm in it at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't stop till 7:30 at night. Okay, this is what I do. But I've made the time, and I want to make the effort to be your mayor November 8th to preserve this city. That's my thing. See you later. Thank you.
All my residents.
I strongly believe our city needs a new beginning, and I'm looking forward to a new city administration, whenever it may be, that remembers above all else that people's good is the highest law. And we must take back La Quinta to make La Quinta great again and again. Too much at stake here to let it all go to waste. These are serious times in La Quinta, and we've had our problems and a lot of notoriety in the last year or two that could have been overseen. But I think that we have to personally insist upon a basic standard of truth from our elected officials. And secondly, we must cultivate a commitment to that truth to show our young people and our children that it has to start here with us. We have that, but we could certainly use more of that. I've not lost my faith in our great city. I believe in La Quinta. And this is not just a campaign slogan that I believe in La Quinta, but it's a deep-seated belief that comes from growing up surrounded by the best La Quinta has to offer. Strong families, strong communities, strong faith, and a strong work ethic, or a sense of personal responsibility. We traveled a lot in the last 2 months on the campaign trail, and I've met with people who have lost their jobs because of the COVID, their savings, homes, their businesses, even their way of life. But they've not lost their hope. They truly believe, as I do, that if we restore La Quinta's promise, things will get better. I'm running for mayor of the city of La Quinta to do just that, to restore La Quinta's promise. And I swear to you that I will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First of all, I just, I'm not one to debate per se, but I want to apologize because an opponent here was criticizing the fact that we're career politicians. And the reality is that's an insult to anybody in this room who voted for the existing council and the councils before us. Robert Ratty was no longer running, because you get to choose who serves your community. I've been proud to serve my community. I'm not a politician. I have no desires to go into higher office. I would love to have somebody else have the drive and passion and perseverance and energy to do what I do, both my full-time job, my mayor job, and all of my committee assignments. You can ask Miss Wendy, one of your residents here. I am unstoppable that way. But nonetheless, futures. Highway 11 corridor, obviously Montage Pendry, Village Old Town development. Obviously electricity is a huge issue that we have to deal with. Affordable housing. We bought the Dune Palms Mobile Home Estates by the high school, it's dilapidated. We also bought 15 acres of land on 111 so that we can build more affordable housing. Because it needs to be near schools, near transportation, and near jobs, retail, shopping, so that they can walk around and be able to afford to live and work and eat and get educated. So we can't put them out in the middle of nowhere. And we embraced it. We've got over 1,500 affordable housing units. We've got plans for another 1,500 per state mandate. We have a balance of preservation land as well, and we have a multi-species habitat plan, so we don't build into the mountains. I'm an avid hiker. We won't do anything to La Quinta Code. Number one, we don't own that land, and number two, it's sacred to us. Safety is clearly our priority. We have a balance of community activities, events, amenities for all levels of income and all walks of life in our community. We're proud of our parks and our recreation facilities. We're fiscally strong. We value your community input as evidenced by the decisions that we make on your behalf, not because it's our opinion. And we also need to become more, well, we are advocates for salt and sea, and I know that's a big issue here. But if you vote no on Measure A, you vote Linda, John Pena, and Deborah McGarry, you'll get the team that you want. Thank you.
I wait for the light to turn green. Again, Deborah McGarry, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out today to hear what we have to say. I will say this, they talk about term limits. You are the ones that make the decision on who's going to be elected as your city council, who's going to represent you, who's experienced, who understands, who listens, who participates, who's attending all the meetings, who's attending all of the regional meetings, understanding how we work as a city across this entire Coachella Valley, Imperial County, and our neighbors. That is incredibly crucial. That's something I've been doing for the last 20-some years of my career. I know, and I've been endorsed by every mayor throughout the entire Coachella Valley, the county supervisor, various other folks throughout the valley, because they've worked with me for years. One of the things that they've shared with me is that, you know what, Deborah, I like working with you because you'll listen, you'll talk, you'll partner. It's not that the city of La Quinta is broken. No, the city of La Quinta, I think, has some of the best years ahead of it from here on out. Granted, there has been a little bit of turmoil with regards to Measure A and a couple other issues. But you know what, though? That's the beauty of our government. Our government allows people to share what they feel is important, to go ahead and make a difference for what they feel is important. Again, that is so important that we allow those conversations. So I don't think it's broken. I think what it does is that it allows people that opportunity to share what's important to them. And I truly do support what the City of La Quinta has been doing. And again, just one last thing, one of the biggest issues we have is going to be energy, the biggest issue. That is something I'm very well versed in. I've been in the industry for over 13 years. I understand it incredibly well. And again, it is going to be an issue. If you want to talk about it afterwards, I'd be happy to share that. Again, vote for Deborah McGarry, November 8th.
I think turned on right away. Richard Gray, I'm asking for your vote, but I'm asking for your vote only if you want a change in La Quinta. Robert Randy decided after 2 terms on the board that it was time for someone else to come on. This is our democracy. It's the democracy of the people serving, electing, and moving on with their lives. It does not have to be the last thing that you do forever and a day. I am a little bit concerned sometimes about recusals. People who are so involved in some things may wind up not being able to participate in a number of decisions because they have to recuse themselves. That has happened in several cases in the past, and so that is a slight concern. Being retired, and the other thing, it means a little less aspects of any recusal except for my looks. But that's the only problem I got. The major point that we have to take into consideration is new eyes, new perspective, new examination of the facts that are going on. After all, we have hired very capable people and we pay them very well to run the city, to do the work that has to be done. The city council and the mayor are supposed to direct, to oversee, to make sure that things run along well. And I think what we look at in a number of cases is that we have a reactive city council that comes and deals with a problem when it has gone way out of size. Thousands of people that signed a petition for Measure A, thousands of people who have supported the OQRRD as far as the thing against Coral Mountain. Why do we have a city council that maybe they hear, but they do not listen?
I'm going to apologize for the coughing.
Do you want to stand up so we can see you in the back? Do you want to stand up?
Actually, they'll stop coughing. So I want to apologize for that though, but you don't know that less than a year ago I was diagnosed with sepsis, taken to intensive care. And the doctor, I asked him, said, tell me straight. He says, I don't think you're going to make it. Which was really not what I wanted to hear. He says, you can drop dead right now. That I definitely didn't want to hear. But 42 days of antibiotics, 4 times a day intravenously, I did die. And I began stronger and stronger and stronger to where I felt that I can actually start to walk again, which I started walking just 4 months ago. I am getting stronger and I'm getting better. And the cough is not indicating I'm getting sicker. It's actually just one lingering thing that I'm getting away with. The Desert Sun was nice enough to say that if you want some fresh ideas without upsetting the apple cart, that vote for Johnson. Can't beat that. I mean, I'll accept that. I didn't agree with everything he said about everybody, but I'll certainly accept their endorsement that I can bring something to the table and not make a mess of everything and to actually make it better. So I appreciate if I can get your vote. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me anytime. by internet person. I'll be happy to answer how I feel, because, the Carl Mountain thing that's over for now, the measure A is gonna be decided on election day. That's gonna be behind us probably. So it's just a matter of you knowing how I think and how I feel on these issues as they come forward. Because there's always gonna be issues. There's always gonna be things coming up. And I just want you to know how I feel, because I'm not one of these people that run with the flow. So thank you very much for your consideration.
First of all, thank you for coming. I'm going to keep this short because I don't want to be the one that comes between you and happy hour. Moving forward, I'll be right there with you. First of all, my vision for La Quinta has not changed since I was elected. It's been public safety, quality of life, and representing you to the best of my ability. I've listened, I take your comments into consideration, and I will continue to do that. I've been a lifelong Coachella Valley resident. My family grew up here. We are here to say this is the coldest place I've ever lived, and I don't have any intention of going anywhere else. So my thoughts are with this desert. I can remember riding motorcycles out in this area and watching it grow and watching it develop. And I'm very proud of how it's developed. La Quinta is a great, great community. It is not broken. It is still moving forward. Even though we're the youngest city in the Coachella Valley, we have really taken great pride in how our community has developed. You can look around at other cities and you can see the difference between us and La Quinta. We will continue to make this community a much better place to live and to work and to play. Our property values have increased, if you haven't noticed. People want to come here. We're a world-class destination, and we want to keep it that way. So I would implore you to vote for the people who have made that change in this city and made it a much better place to live. And again, thank you for coming out. I look forward to your questions and your answers and comments as we move forward. Thank you.
Yes, our leadership team has done a real good job. La Quinta has developed fine the last 40 years. I ran back in the middle 80s the first time. I ran a little small campaign. I was concerned then about the Salton Sea. I'm a little sad here 40 years later, where is the Salton Sea? And I believe government fixes things. And that's still a concern, the Salton Sea. Energy, we need more solar power, we need more wind power, we need to finance that and help it develop. That's going to be a big concern. I also think that we should work regionally with the state of California because we have an interstate highway system. We probably need an interstate water system by now. We need to bring water down from Columbia River. As we speak, the Mississippi's in trouble. So we're smart Americans. We may need to start moving water around from the Great Lakes or wherever. But we better start talking about it locally, regionally, because this may not go away, and we know California's going to continue to develop. So I run for office because I'm concerned about the future. I love La Quinta. We have a great town, and again, our leadership team has done a wonderful job, and I'm just trying to get us into the future. And I think that's something we need to think about. Energy, IID, I don't like being powerless. I want us to be able to have a seat on that board and understand what's going on with IID. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for coming out today. It was wonderful, and you guys are great. Bye-bye.
Thanks to all the candidates. Everyone to know that they have 2 bars operating today, so double speed. So get to it, and I'm sure the candidates will be here for remaining questions.